Nepal is a small mountainous country with mystical connotations for Western travelers. The Wittmeyer family has experienced that spiritual side, along with seeing the everyday challenges that Nepalese people face. Let's welcome Jay Wittmeyer, who serves on Heifer International's board and is Executive Director of Global Mission and the Service for the Church of the Brethren. We also welcome Sarah Wittmeyer, a nurse who has made 3 trips to Nepal. And we welcome 15-year-old Allison Wittmeyer, who lived with her family in Nepal from 2000 to 2004. Jay, can you tell me a little bit about your experience visiting Nepal and the first time you ever went there?
Yeah, thank you. The first time I went to Nepal, I was just 20 years old. I really wanted to do some mission work. I was very excited about the opportunity to go. I didn't know much about the country, and at the time, it struck me how it felt so much like a medieval village, small, narrow pathways, little artisans, craftsmen working on the side of the road, doing pottery, making yogurt, doing all kinds of things. And it was so completely different to the United States. The people struck me as incredibly beautiful, very athletic. It seemed like everyone had a perfect smile, no dental work, no cavities. And the other aspect is just the deep poverty. People carried heavy loads through the mountains, very few roads. So everything that was carried was by porter, often up to 200 pounds on the heads of individuals with baskets.
Sounds like an amazing experience. Sarah, can you tell me about your first experience there and how it affected you as a nurse and as a Christian?
Being from the West, we're used to healthcare being accessible to everyone. And in Nepal, especially in the mountains, there just is very few health posts. There aren't very many resources. There aren't very many doctors. People have to walk for days just to get to the hospital. So babies are almost always born at home, and they're often born in cow sheds, which was a bit of a shock. People come to the hospital with very minor things that have grown into very huge things simply because they have not been addressed. So you'll get enormous infections. You'll get things we never see in the West.
Allison, you lived there as a young child, right?
Yes.
From 3 to 7, you were saying.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and how that has affected you later on in life?
Well, the first time we went there, we lived in Okhaldunga, and we lived in a mission house. And I remember the house was on top of a hill, and below that was the guest house, and then below that was the school for the missionary kids. And I was 3, and I remember that house being so colorful with different pictures from all the missionary kids, and it had like all these really cool decorative things that you could use. And then the second time we went there, we lived in Nepal, we live in Kathmandu, which is the capital. And there I went to a international school, and we lived in a 2, 3, 4-story apartment. We lived on the 2nd floor, and going out each day walking to school was, now that I look back on it, it's so different from living here, and the smell and the noise.
How has that shaped your faith, with this experience and these travels? And, does it bring you any memories, or does it help you connect with your faith better?
Well, because I've been exposed to the different cultures and the different faiths that you have in those other countries, I feel like on a personal level, I'm more open to like other countries' faiths and their religions, and other people as well, because I have that kind of head start when I was younger of seeing, how people's lives are different than here, and that has definitely helped me to become more open to, that sometimes Christianity isn't the best for everybody, and they feel more comfortable with their former religion, and we as Christians need to accept that and accept them, even if they do not share a common faith.
How did it differ from your first trip to your second trip?
The first time I went, I was very young and keenly aware of how difficult life is for individuals. Many Nepalese send some family member either to India to work as migrant labor. Some joined the British Army as Gurkhas, though that's changed a bit recently. Many have gone to the Middle East to work simply because there's not trying to farm on the side of a 10,000-foot mountain with very small fields planting corn. It's just very difficult, and the countryside cannot sustain the family members, so individuals have to go off. Life is a very difficult struggle. This time I was impressed to be with Heifer and to see in very concrete ways that individuals could begin to address poverty on their own home sites and come up with some income generating scheme, in this case through goat production, that will allow them to escape really months of low caloric intake and months of hunger, just trying to stretch their meager resources to get through on a day-to-day basis.
How has the Heifer Project tie in with your community, with the Church of Brethren?
Heifer was started by the Brethren in the 40s with a simple notion that instead of just feeding people, let's give an animal, in this case a heifer, in post-war Europe, give a heifer, and then the firstborn is to be passed on. It's called passing on the gift to another family. When we were in Nepal this time, we saw a passing on the gift. It was 13th generation. So heifer made the initial gift. That family raised, in this case, goats, and then it was passed on, and it was passed on for the 13th time. And families were so delighted that they didn't want to give just one goat, they wanted to give two. They wanted to give goats that were pregnant to ensure that they'd be passed on very quickly. It was really inspirational, and I think that's fundamental to our Brethren faith, is that you pass on what God has given to you, that you find a way to pass on a gift, to help others, to pass it forward, is a phrase that we commonly use. And to see a transformation in local communities of people struggling to get by, kind of fighting for whatever resources they could get in terms of firewood or grazing land, and finding their neighbors to be somewhat at odds against them, to see the transformation where just a little bit of movement forward economically and socially allows them to treat each other in such a way that they say, you know, I'm not just a recipient. I can give, I can care, I can help others, I can participate in the development of this community. Just a wonderful transformation for us.
That sounds like it was a beautiful experience. So how did the goal, what is the goal of the goat project then? How does it tie into all of this?
The main meal for a feast in Nepal is goat. It's not here, but it is there. So weddings and whatever occasion, you would always serve goat meat. And goat, by weight, is actually a very expensive meat. They don't eat beef, obviously. Nepal imports 500,000 goats a year. Heifer recognizes that it can help move people out of poverty if they can establish a good goat production means to fill that gap. So there's room on a national scale to do that. And Heifer cooperates with the Ministry of Agriculture and others to achieve that goal. So that's a national goal that they're working at. On an individual goal, Heifer recognizes that many families are living on less than $1 a day, and they have set a goal of $2,500 a year income, so $365 versus $2,500. And Heifer recognizes that that will really allow people to get out of poverty, to not suffer bouts of hunger, or to not have to send husbands, sons, daughters into that trafficking trade just to get income for the family. So it changes the dynamics significantly, and it allows all children to go to school. It allows individuals to build new homes, to move from mud floors, to move into cement floors, and it just helps begin to generate some capital in communities. So you have someone building homes, you have someone building furniture, you have kids going to school. Pretty soon they need a bicycle to travel to school, and you get this economic development that exponentially sort of moves forward. And that is what Heifer is really working at.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Allison, for joining us today. I'm Erin McCormick for Different Drummers and the Greater Chicago Broadcast Ministries. Keep the faith.